G'day, wherever you are. This is Mastering Music, Mastering Life. Tony Jack, the Bearman's in the house for the final podcast for 2018. And there is no guest as such on this week, as I mentioned on Facebook during the week, that I would be doing this one on my own. And because I've been asked by quite a few people, quite a few people have said to me, hey, why don't you just go out there and riff on your own for a while? You got lots of things to say. And I always dismissed those requests because I felt the podcast per se was all about the guests. And that's the reason why people would tune in. I still think there is a certain amount of truth to that. But when I actually looked deeper into it, there was some fear behind that excuse that I always gave, even though it was a fairly valid one, thinking that, who really give a fuck and what I'd have to say. But more to the point that an hour of me would not be all that entertaining or interesting. And that, the pundits have all been saying, people say, when you're on social media, keep your video short, sharp, to the point, be succinct, don't fuck about, and so on and so on. But I do go out and I do speak, and I have spoken for an hour or more to people, but I've never actually sat in front of a microphone on my own and spoken like this. It does seem a little bit weird and uncomfortable is something that most of us don't really like doing. And there's someone that goes out there and tells people, hey, let go of your safety net, take risks, go be brave. I should at least be appearing to be congruent in those kind of things that I espouse and encourage other people to do. And in particular, I'd like to thank Adam Lowry, my boy from the Cognitive Rampage podcast. He was one of my guests. And if you haven't checked out Adam, he's awesome. And particularly for those of you who are really interested in the areas of substance abuse, mental health, Adam is a treasure trove of knowledge. He keeps it real. He's straight up. And more importantly, he's giving out information that the mainstream doesn't particularly like people peddling, because it does go against their model of how the mental health industry works. And it is industry because it makes a fuckload of cash. It's about managing health these days, not actually curing people, because once they've cured you, they got no money to get out of you. Anyway, that's a whole other line of conversation, and I'll get back to the point of what I want to talk about, which is about the podcast. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the year and the year that was for me and for Deluxe and for the podcast, and where I'm hoping to go into 2019. And it's funny how this time of year before I do that, I just got to send a shout out to a couple of people. So sorry if I do go on tangents, even though I've got a few pointers here to help me out. I tend to sort of go a little bit all over the shop. So forgive me if I do meander a little. But I want to send, obviously I'll send one out to Adam. Love you, man. You're awesome. Thank you for your encouragement. Also to my friend and mentor, Craig Harper, who I've had the pleasure of knowing and working with this last year. And he's been absolutely amazing and very helpful to me in terms of helping with my speaking career and mentoring and accountability. And it's been an absolute privilege to be able to sit down with a bloke like him, who a year and a half ago was just a bloke on stage who I didn't know. So very grateful, Harps, for all your input. And you might be being quoted quite a bit through the next little while, for as long as this lasts. Also, a big shout out to Joey Coco Diaz. How could I fuck up your name, brother? I'm so sorry. But Joey Coco Diaz, for those of you who don't know him, stand-up comic and actor. He appears quite regularly on the Joe Rogan podcast, also has a successful one of his own called The Church of What's Happening Now. Joey, we don't know each other in person, but thanks for your inspiration during the year and your podcasts. If you want to hear a guy that absolutely keeps it real, who's had an amazing journey in life, and who is also really good at, he's into helping people. He dispenses great advice, and just watching him over the year has been really quite influential on me. So Joey, thank you. I don't know if you'll get to hear this or see this, but hopefully one day, brother, love to get you on the podcast, because I think your story is awesome and the advice you dispense is great. And I think a lot of kids would get a lot out of your wisdom. Alrighty. So this is the time of year a lot of people think about their New Year's resolutions, and it's all full of good intention. But while intention's good, for the most part, people don't follow through. And I was listening to this talkback show yesterday. They talked about that, and it's interesting how mentally we think that a Monday, or particularly January 1, is a magical day where somehow we magically reset, we change, and the things that we want to change within ourselves happens. And I'm not giving you these statistics to frighten you, but this is just the reality of what seems to be the case with most people, and that is 24 hours after people make their resolution, 34% are still on the case. So over 2/3 basically bomb out. 7% continue on with whatever there is they're intending to do, New Year's resolution wise, after a week. And at the 6-month point, 0.2 of 1% are still carrying on with their New Year's resolution. The most popular one being getting rid of weight. And that's a journey I know very well, and I won't get too much into it in the podcast, but I think during the course of the year, I'll be putting up a few videos just talking a little bit more about my journey. But for those of you who don't know, I managed to release 70-odd kilos over the course of about 18 months. I was morbidly obese, and it's a complex issue. It's not just as easy as, eat less, exercise more. It's a big mindset thing around it, like with most things. And the way you identify is how you identify within yourself and your peer group. It's a big thing to do. It's a big overhaul. People don't become morbidly obese in a matter of 3 months or 6 months. It's a long haul to get there. It's a lot of work, even though you're not doing any work, but still it's a lot of eating, a lot of calories, and time. And in order to reverse that, it requires some time as well. And I think that's something that I will make a point of bringing up a little bit more during the course of the year, seeing as it is, I just found out, but not surprisingly, the most popular New Year's resolution for people. I guess people feel so guilty as they do after eating all that festive food. So just while I'm on the thank you thing, now I'm back on the thank you thing again. I should thank, I'd like to thank the guys who work out of the studio here. Adam Dempsey, who's been with me here for, coming up to 13 years. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate all your help and your support. To my young gun protege, Tom Beard, who does lots of work behind the scenes, is killing it in the mastering stakes right now, doing a lot of his DJing production work and helping me with the podcast, doing all the back end stuff. Thanks, mate. I would not be able to do this without your help. I appreciate you and love you a great deal. And to all the people that have used us over the last 12 months, thank you so much for utilizing our services. And even to those who haven't, who at the very least they did consider us, thank you for even thinking of us and bothering to send us an email and your tracks and asking us to throw our hat in the ring and put in a quote. We hope that next year will be bigger and better for all parties concerned. So this podcast was created over a while ago, and it's gone through different incarnations. And initially, my inspiration for doing a podcast was after watching podcasts like, Rogan and London Real, and love the idea of the long form format and having conversations with people who had done great things in life and who were able to share their stories in the hope to inspire others. And that always was very appealing to me. And I thought, okay, well, I'd love to be able to do a podcast of that nature and have it fit in within my industry. And not that there aren't podcasts, within the music industry here locally or internationally, but I was hoping to do something that was going to be a little bit different. I didn't really want to get too much into the tutorial aspect of it, or how to do this or how to do that. Not that those questions or that kind of exploration isn't valid when people are watching or listening to a podcast, but I really wanted to find people who I could have somewhat of a deeper conversation to talk about what makes them tick and what were the challenges in their life. And so that people who look to people, especially if they had a particular profile, could look at these people and go, wow, I don't feel alone in this. Wow, this guy who, people would perceive to be, with this certain status and elevated a certain way, that they are human, that they have feelings, that they have failings, that they have their flaws and drawbacks, and and whatnot. And I've been very grateful so far to the guests that I've had on who have been willing to be very open. I've never asked anyone to be confessing all the deepest, darkest secrets, but at least to hopefully be comfortable with being open enough to talk about the stuff when it goes wrong, and the stuff that they continue to deal with, because I think that's what makes it real and that's what makes it authentic. And that word authenticity gets bounced around so much these days, almost to the point where it's become a bit of a cliche. But it's interesting that the world is craving for authenticity, and yet we are ironically living in the world where social media authenticity isn't always rewarded. In fact, a lot of people cop a lot of shit. So young people today who are looking at social media and the messages of social media are conflicted and not sure what to do. Like, one hand, they want the honesty, but they struggle to be honest themselves because they fear, ridicule, what do people think of them, and all the other bullshit fears that a lot of us have in life. But this podcast is hopefully going to be a vehicle where particularly young people, and the reason I have a focus on young people, and by young people I mean 18 to 35, because that's the kind of age group where they're entering, they left school, they're entering the workforce, they're looking at life, they're looking at making decisions, and particularly for those who are of an artistic, creative persuasion, because they're not usually encouraged to go out there and do that kind of thing, whether it's from their parents, society, get a real job, whatever that means, 9 to 5, regular, consistent work. And, we're seeing more and more people who are doing 9 to 5, who are making, lots of money, are usually very disillusioned, very unhappy, and, more inclined to get into distractions or addictions, or just be miserable, because it's all about the dollar. It's all about gain. It's all about materialism. It's all about, their self-worth is attributed to their net worth and their title and all that kind of thing, and think that that's what people want from them, and living their lives according to what society tells them is the quote unquote, right way to live, or what's going to give them validity and status and power and influence in the world. And therefore they think they're going to get their own sense of self-worth and, from those kind of things. I can tell you now, there's nothing more satisfying than job satisfaction and doing the thing that you love. And even if it's not something that you do full time, I still think that is something that you can enjoy as an adjunct to what you do. It's very, very hard to make money as an artist. It really is. I see it. I deal with them all the time. And in fact, quite a lot of my clients aren't making their full-time living from their art. They're doing things on the side. I know myself, when I, built this place, from the moment I kind of started until I opened the doors here, it was about a 21-year journey, and I had to do lots of side things to help, finance living and paying rent and feeding kids and whatnot, while I was trying to build a business and build this studio. Now, 21 years isn't the timeline that is what it's going to be for everyone out there. I decided I wanted to do something at a very, at the upper echelon and go all out with it. And therefore it took more money, more time, more effort and whatnot. But it's a very satisfying thing to come in and do the thing that you love. And I really want to encourage youngsters out there to go for it and not be discouraged by people. I think people are very well meaning when they talk about there's potential pitfalls and there are risks involved, but anything worthwhile in life requires you to take risk. It requires you to go out there and have a go, have a real go at it. And if you don't get there, whatever there means, at least you don't die wondering. You don't want to be like, people who get to their deathbed and then all of a sudden they discovered that, oh shit, I wish I'd done this and I wish I'd done that and I wish I'd said this and usually that list is very, very long, and it's a very sad thing to think about. I mean, I know that when I've thought about that moment, that's of course if I don't get just taken out by a car or a truck or something unexpectedly. If I was on a deathbed and I was thinking about life, I thought, shit, that's a really heavy thing to contemplate. But when you're young, they're the sort of things you don't really think about, and understandably so, because you're young, right? And you're bulletproof and you're eternal, and you know that's the sort of stuff that why would you think about that? But I think as I've gotten a bit older, and that's been a question I've thought about and thought about quite a bit, it really gets me to get focused and centered on what's important and what would I like to do and what are the things I'd like to achieve and what are the loose ends I'd like to tie up so that I don't have at least major regrets or resentments, as I come into the final hours of my life, or however long that may be. So you don't want to have regret in life. So I strongly encourage you kids to go out there and do your thing. And I hope that the podcast is a vehicle where you hear from a range of people, whether they are famous or whether they are young, that there's going to be someone there that'll speak to you, because I really like getting young people on the podcast too that are succeeding in their career choices, so that 20-something person that went and studied and came out of school and is thinking about, well, shit, how do I start? What do I do? How do I go about it? Listening to someone within their demographic is going to speak louder than me just continuing talking about the same thing over and over all the time, because after a while it may just sound like it's trite or cliche or scripted or just the my slogans, if you will. So that's, again, another part of the motivation of getting different people on there, so that you guys get different different people talking about their experiences, but you'll probably find that there will be lots of common denominators, and those are that there's it's hard work, that it's being able to make a decision, that it's about having an intention to do what you want to do, it's about being resourceful, resilience, about the kind of people that you hang out with, about being clear as to why you want to do what you want to do. I think a lot of people don't sit and think about, why am I doing what I'm doing? What is the actual reason why? And without having clarity around that and understanding what it is that you are doing it for, it makes it hard to make decisions, because then you're probably not going to be very clear on your values. And for me, this podcast, the why has changed quite a bit. It really has. And, the why now is really, really clear, which is, as I've mentioned to you before, it's about, well, there's certainly a personal thing for me, just a self-indulgent exercise in getting to speak to people who either I know well and really enjoy having great conversations with, or people I haven't met who I wish I could have met or would like to meet, even if it is over the internet, and engage in conversations and find out more about them and what makes them tick. So there is a self-indulgent part to all of this, but also as a vehicle in a way to hopefully help inspire someone who watches or listens, and maybe gives them an idea and takes them from, fuck, this is too hard, I can't do it, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not whatever enough, and then go, oh shit, maybe, just maybe, I could probably do this, because, hey, I just saw a guy of my age or a girl of my age who has done it from a worse circumstance, and this is their pathway, and it gives them something. All I really want to be is a domino. So long as I can just tip one domino and let it all just go from there, that's it. From that point, I don't know what happens. I don't get to hear, I don't get to know. It's not about even that. It's just knowing that there's just enough momentum there to start a chain reaction that otherwise would not have started unless you'd seen that podcast. So that's really what the main motivation is behind doing this. And I think what you'll find too is that when anyone looks at the why they do anything, they will succeed more when it is something outside of themselves. If you're getting into, if you want to be a band, for example, a singer or songwriter, because you're looking at money, fame, fortune, validation from people, to be lauded by people, to be on the A list and all in all the cool clubs and where all the beautiful people are, you might get there. And I would not want to get in front of anyone's way from trying to achieve those things. They're all quite achievable. But if that is the main reason, if that is the goal, if that is what is going to make you happy, and you won't be happy until you get there, then you're in for a really slippery slope, because it's not about that. The whole cliche of it's not the destination. We have this thing of making it in society as, again, about achievement, about materialism, about title, prestige, prizes, Grammys, Oscars, Logies, Junos, BAFTAs, all these kind of things that make us important to people. And they're great and they're wonderful, and I have no issue with those things, but they don't satisfy you, in the long term. They're transitory and they're good. And, those sort of things people forget about. You're in the limelight for 5 minutes and then you're gone. And in this day and age, especially with the way social media works, people's refresh rate on that kind of stuff is really, really fast. You don't even have to be yesterday's news. You could be the morning news, and then by lunchtime, you're pretty much forgotten about. So if that is your motivation, and if you really, really honest with yourself and ask the question, why am I doing this? And it's really hard being honest with yourself. Your ego will get in the way and will tell you, oh, no, you really do love music, you love art. But deep down, it's about, I don't feel that I'm good enough unless I achieve this, or I will feel good about myself when I do this and I do that. I can tell you right now, you'll be in for a rough and bumpy ride. Because I can tell you as well, when I was young, wanting to get into music, Yes, I love music. I still love music, but there was a part of me that thought this would make me really cool, because all my other friends went to university, got their degrees, and I thought, well, if I can say I do this and work in music and work with musicians and people that have, if they're rock stars or people with a high profile, it would give me some kind of added clout with people. That was my mistaken way of thinking, but that certainly was a part of the reason why, because as a youngster, I just didn't feel that I was good enough, or, because I didn't go to university and I didn't go through the industry as a regular guy, as my peers, I should say, the 3-4 year internship, and then becoming an in-house assistant engineer, and then eventually, becoming, freelance people. I was a guy that went really quite contrary to all that. So therefore, as someone that didn't go through the system, I felt, well, I'm probably not good enough as an engineer either. And for many, many years, found myself in this thing called imposter syndrome, which a lot of people, as I found out when I wrote a blog about it last year, said, you know what, if you amazed how many people still feel like they're imposters, or that they're not worthy, or they ask them, well, shit, am I really deserving of all of this? It's more widespread than I thought. And that was a really amazing revelation. Alrighty, so next year, what are we going to do next year is we're hopefully going to get a lot more interesting guests on. I really want to try and broaden the base, and I also will be looking at hopefully people not just from music, because even though it's called Mastering Music, Mastering Life, and I come from music or mastering background, a lot of my guests are from the music industry, and that's all good. There's also a lot of incredible people out there who have incredible stories to tell of how they've overcome hardship, people that have dealt with substance abuse and mental health, two areas that are rampant, particularly in the music industry and the creative arts industry. I mean, the general population, I think it's 1 in 4 people have some are afflicted by it, which is really terrible, and that's shocking in itself. It's 1 in 3 in the music industry. So we have a disproportionately high, percentage of people who are dealing with mental health and substance abuse issues. And while I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a pharmacologist, I have no formal academic qualification to talk about it. I still think nothing like experience speaks. Then yes, having people that are qualified and with the degrees have, obviously studied and intelligent and have things to add to the conversation. But I think when it comes to someone who's really down the doldrums, hearing a story from someone who's actually been in the darkness, gone through the trenches, experienced it firsthand, that can talk in a way that another person can hear and go, fuck, yeah, he gets it. He knows my story. He's telling my story, is going to speak louder. So I'm hoping to broaden the base in that respect. Again, in the hope that the podcast might be able to help people along to, encourage them to, to know that they are okay and that they will be okay and that there are options out there and that they will be okay as I move down the line. So also next year, the other thing that I'll be rolling out more of that I started this year as a result of going to Craig Harper's mentoring groups is more mentoring sessions in the studio. I've experimented a bit in terms of how many weeks to do them. Tried a 6-week one. I think it's a bit too long. A 3-week one, which is not too bad. But I think what I'm going to do next year is I'm just going to have just a one-off groups where I'll invite people to come in, we sit down, and each person gets an opportunity. We'll keep the groups, relatively small. I think up to about 6 people is a good size to accommodate in the studio. And that way it gives them the opportunity to feel comfortable, and we'll create a very safe and comfortable environment where people can just talk about what they want to talk about to whatever extent they feel comfortable talking about. I certainly will be very open and free and forthcoming with my stuff because what I've realized that most people feel fairly similarly. Most people have similar kind of fears, aspirations. And so hopefully, because now I've got to a point where I'm giving less fucks about what people think about what I say or how I roll, I can encourage people to be more open about this stuff. And again, just share a few stories and my experience in the hope that they'll get something out of it. So I think the one-off groups is what I'm going to go with. And then if there's a demand to do a second group after that and with the same bunch, then we'll go that way. It's still one of those works in progress. And, in time I think I'll hit that magic perfect medium of, of weeks and what to do and what to say and what to talk about. The thing is, you just got to give it a go. And at least I'm getting it up and off the ground and trying to find a way to bring some value outside of just the mastering work that I do. So they'll be rolling out during the course of next year. I also will be doing some mastering workshops. I've already got 2 that sold out, which surprised me. I've got to be honest. Again, one of those things people said, hey, you should do a mastering workshop. Why don't you teach mastering? And I, again, my excuse was, well, fuck, there's so many people out there doing it. Just go on YouTube. There, just plenty of opportunities for people to go out there and look and learn and see with great visuals and great, production element. And while there is some truth and validity in that, again, there was the fear of, well, shit, how am I going to fill 3 hours? What exactly am I going to talk about? Will it be enough? Will I be able to bring enough value for people to walk away feeling like they got something out of it? And when I looked into it further, I thought, well, you know what? Maybe I can find a way to do it in a way that not many people are doing. And so, bring it into the studio in a small, intimate environment where I'm here and people can have access to me, and I can make it fit to their needs and their specific requirements, and they can ask their questions. And, there's something about being with people in the personal space. Videos, YouTube, Skype, all these kind of things are great and wonderful, and technology makes things available to people and to get information and to connect and whatnot. But there is something about being in a room with someone, particularly when you are in close proximity and you have that access directly to that person and they're speaking to you, actually to you. And you know that time spent is time for you. That does have value for people. And so upon thinking about it, and I thought, listen, I'll put it out there. I was absolutely amazed at the response, and I'm very grateful for that. So looking forward to those 2. As to how many more of those I'll do, I'm sure there will be. I don't think it's something that necessarily I might want to do month in, month out. But again, I'll just play it by ear and see how it goes, and to rely on the feedback of these first 2 sessions to see how far it goes. In fact, even if it does go any further. I'm looking forward to getting to speak to more schools next year and more places that are willing to have me, whether it's on a panel or to do a keynote. And again, my main interest right now is to talk to predominantly artistic creatives who are going out there, kids finishing uni, going out there into the real world and the workforce, about sharing the stuff I've learned, the mistakes I've made, and being really quite honest about that kind of stuff, in the hope that they don't make the same mistakes. You know, I was very fortunate that I had some really good mentors when I was younger. When I first got into the game, and I learned by being a studio rat, I just traveled around and spent a bit of time in America and Canada, and went to these places that didn't know me from a bar of soap. My communication back then was really by handwritten letters and the odd phone call when I can afford it. And they were, Americans particularly, they were very forthcoming, very open, and say, "Yeah, man, come over here. We'd love to meet you." I think though that they were surprised when I actually turned up on their doorstep. But lo and behold, when I did, they were very accommodating, very open, and Americans, I think, just love people that risk takers, that will go the extra yard. And I think also being Australian at the time probably helped me too, because Australia was the flavour of the month, and they just wanted to hear the accent. But whatever, got my foot in the door. But it's one thing getting your foot in the door somewhere, and then another thing trying to keep your foot in there. But I was very fortunate that people that didn't know me from a bar of soap were so open, and they were there and willing to help and support me, give me great advice, not just about studio, technical, creative stuff, but also about life stuff as well, which sort of came quite naturally to them. And so I just said, hey, ever get to a point where I get my own place, I'd love to be able to do that for someone. And so that's a big part of the motivation why I do the mentoring, and I love the mentoring. It's something that I hope to keep doing as I grow older. At 70 years of age, if I'm around and healthy, I can see myself doing this, and in fact, probably being better at it, because there'll be more life experience and wisdom to share. Whether I'm still mastering records at 70, who knows? But if I was a betting man, I'd be putting more money on me doing more mentoring and spending more of my time in that arena, because I don't feel I'm too old for this caper, but the time has come for me to pass the baton, let some younger hungry guys come in and make their mark in the world, and let them and have their turn. I've had a really good run with it, and I'm still having a good run with it. I still pinch myself that the doors are still open here, and that the light switch on, the toilet flushes in a time when we have a saturation of recording, mixing, mastering facilities, online facilities, AI, and all these people they're successful and doing well, and people have so much choice to go and do what they want to, wherever they want to go and with whom they want to work with. And so it makes it more challenging, particularly when you are set up in a commercial facility and you got the overheads of a facility that keep going up, but yet the budgets of records are getting lower and lower, and people are wanting to spend less and less, and so it's very hard to balance those things. But I think in this day and age, the difference for people, especially if you're a younger person, you're starting out, you want to get your own studio going off the ground, and you're feeling overwhelmed by the fact that there are so many studios there, and think, well, fuck, how am I going to make a living? How am I going to compete with all these people? Well, let me tell you, I think the whole industry is expanding. There are more and more people out there who want to make music because of the accessibility, affordability of technology these days, and not to mention the accessibility. I mean, shit, you can just download so much stuff online these days and pay for it on a credit card. Bang, you've got some amazing technology at your fingertips. You've got tutorials online of people that are showing you how to use stuff, and then it's just a matter of you rolling up your sleeves and doing the work. And repetition being the mother of skill, you are going to get good at something. But I think one of the big factors that separates people that are doing better than others who are similarly equipped studio-wise or experience-wise just comes down to the love for the client. As simple as that. And by that I mean the care factor and how invested they are in people's recordings. So, if you're young and you're starting out, don't be intimidated by that. I really suggest you go out and have a crack at it. And if you are a good people person, you're a good communicator, you're sincere, you're genuine, you're doing the gig because you love it, and it's not just about making money. you'll find that the money is something that becomes an automatic consequence. My dear old grandma used to say, focus on the one and your zeros will follow, which makes sense. And by that, she meant it's about fundamentals, about basics, get them down, do them right, do them well. And all the other stuff will kind of just follow on its own without too much effort. So, understand that sometimes you can actually do well, even if you don't make money in a job. And I'll give you an example, and this is not me, giving myself a pat on the back, but I had a client the other day who sent me some tracks to have a listen to, and a couple of days later got back and said, hey, listen, my producer decided that they're going to use someone else. Fine. That's one of those things that are out of my control. But I still decided that I would go through the process of listening to the tracks and giving some feedback on them, irrespective of whether they were going to use me or not, because I thought, well, that's something I was going to do anyway. And I thought at least that's still going to give goodwill. And the greatest asset you're going to have is goodwill. It's about building a good name, a good reputation for yourself. And sometimes it's going to mean doing things and serving others where money's not involved. It's just about you helping people because you genuinely want to help, and you do it simply because of that. And people are going to pick up on that. And so I thought, you know what? I really believe in that. And I thought I'll just go ahead and I'll listen to it and I'll give them the feedback. And I don't expect to get the work. I won't get the work. That's fine. I'll still feel a lot better about myself knowing that I've done the right thing. And, even when it comes to jobs, sometimes people will take on work that, again, you can take any job and make anything sound better, and you can. Subjectively, you can. And, you'll get your money and it's all good, but it's a very short-term strategy. When you get lured into that kind of thing, what will happen is the people that paid you, when they take the work you've done and take it home and listen to it, they're going to realize that maybe they've been had or something's not quite right, and they're going to ask questions of you, and rightly so. And remember that good news takes a long time to go around, but the bad news travels 10 times faster than the good news. And not only does it travel 10 times faster, but usually it's embellished 10 times more. So you're not going to be everyone's number one. You're not going to please everybody. And that's not the name of the game. But I think the important thing is to try at least to not give people a justified reason to say bad things about you, because when you do something deep down knowing that's probably not the right thing, then it's on you. What else can I give you guys before I clear out of here? There really isn't that much more I want to talk about. I think I've said it all. We've talked about, the podcast, what it's about, what I'm going to next year. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited. Again, just thank you to everyone that has tuned in, listened to us, for the feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm going to put a real big focus into wanting to get involved in ways where I can help younger artistic creators, particularly who are trying to get their foot in the door. Remember, the best way to get your foot in the door is to build your own door to put your own foot through. We can't give internships, we can't give jobs, but we'll always try and find ways to provide opportunities to give people that success experience, if you will, where someone actually says yes instead of a no, which you're going to get to hear a lot of. And I still do. Get used to it. It's nothing personal. It's just the way it is. But at least to give a kid a success experience that way, where someone will say yes and bring them in and sit down and have a listen to what they have to say and see if we can guide them somehow and give them opportunity to see how things work in the real world, so to speak. So going to look at ways to do more of that. And as I said, more mentoring groups and just seeing how I can do things that are going to serve my broader community, because I think that's the way, the best way that I'll ever leave a legacy. And, having gold records is beautiful, and I don't discount them. I don't trivialize them, but it's not what, it's not what I identify through those things. And with or without them, I'm still the same person, still the same skill set. And still with the same aspirations. And for me, it's less about that kind of thing and more about, how can I help and how can I do so with whatever resources that I have above and beyond the stuff that takes care of me first. So from that excess, if you will. so I can do it from that place of where it's unconditional and where I don't feel that if someone doesn't respond a certain way or do something for me in return, it's not going to matter because it wasn't done from that initial place. There was no agenda behind it, and that's where the real happiness is. Alrighty, well that's about it for me. I'm out of here. If you're still with us, thank you. I got no idea who's going to be watching or listening to this, but as I said, this was really an exercise in me to do something out of my comfort zone and get over my own bullshit for primarily. Anything else that comes out of it is a bonus. So at least I've done that, and I feel a little bit better about doing it and getting it done. And actually, you know what? Now that I've gone through this exercise, I feel like maybe next year I might chuck a couple more of these out, if and or when I feel there's some appropriate messages to put out there. Anyway, I love you fuckers. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful 2019. Hope you guys are healthy, happy, safe, and strong, and look after your friends. And may all your aspirations come to fruition next year, or at least certainly come a lot closer to that. And remember, kids, that it's success is finding the thing that you love, doing what you love, being on the track of doing it. Whether you make money or not, at least you're in there attempting, having a go, and enjoying the process of doing what you're doing. A lot of people who are doing 9 to 5 wouldn't even dream of even getting out of the starting blocks. Even that is way too hard for them because they're just so overridden with fear about whether it is failure, about whether it is not looking good in front of people, whether it's disappointing parents or society or their perceptions around that. They won't even go near it. It's just a thought, and that's it. So even the fact that you are having a go at it is success in the way I frame it anyhow. Alrighty, that's it. I'm out of here. Love you fuckers. Please be nice to each other, but more importantly, be nice to yourselves. And one final thank you to the guys down at the Cave Hub in Bond Street, Abbotsford, who have a wonderful facility down there. It's a licensed premises. You can, you can do your own gigs there. I think it'll hold 350 people beautifully. So it's a really nice mid-level venue. They also, it's a great place to do, your pre-production work. Rehearsal space. They've got a stage, they've got the lights, they've got the PA, they've got the whole box and dice, and the Farnham boys are amazing. They were very supportive of me last year when I put together a few events and put their money where their mouth was. And I always make sure that I give them a big rap on every podcast because I think they're just great guys and they're doing great things for our scene. All right, I'm out here. Love you fuckers. See you later.